Hey guys, my name is Carla Grace. I am a full-time wildlife artist and I'm going to give you access to a really great section of my tutorial that teaches how to paint a realistic portrait of a chimpanzee. In this sneak peek, I will focus on the chin and add the final details to the face. This part doesn't demand intricate detail, but rather layering and glazing. Gradually, I will build darker tones before applying a black glaze to deepen the shadows. This technique also extends to the side of the face where minimal detail is needed. I maintain a balance of tones, gradually building highlights and shadows for depth and realism. Now I'll show you the full section from the tutorial and I'll see you at the end. I dare say it is now time to start working on the parts of the face that we have yet to go, which is the hair on the chin. And that's going to be really fun because it's not going to require a huge amount of detail. It's just going to require layering and glazing. So I'm going to start with the skin tone on the chin, which is a dark peachy color. So again, burnt umber, alizarin crimson, and a tiny little bit of Payne's gray just to make it really shadowy. I'm just going to start applying that in a very general sense and create a slightly darker version again with the same colors, just in a higher concentration. And now I'm going to come in with some black and glaze over that to push it back. And that'll basically be all that we need in order to create those very, very basic tones, because we're going to come in with quite a lot of hair on top of that, and that's going to complete that section for us, is the illusion of detail over the chin. I'm just going to add a little bit more Mars Black to my palette because I will be using it a little bit to glaze over the hairs that I add and the details in the lips, just to bring in that contrast once again. Just going to bring a few hints of the black just to steepen only a few parts of the shadows, and that will just bring in a little bit more depth to the curve of the lips. Then I'm going to bring it in on the side of the face where we've sort of just avoided adding too much detail here. It's not an area that needs a lot of detail, and I'm sort of using it as an example of this. So I'm just going to casually bring in a few wisps of fur at the back here before I move on to the fur that's coming out the side of the lip. I'm going to do the same down the bottom, the portrait, which is another area that I'm not really going to pay a lot of attention to, more just so that I can move on with the parts of the face that are a little bit more important. I'm going to extend some of the dark hairs underneath the chin. I'm going to add a tiny little bit of brown to this area under the chin, because that is a very clear colour in the reference photo. I'll glaze over that with a little bit of black, blend it in. But again, I'm not going to do a huge amount down there. I'm just going to bring in a little smidge of colour and that's about it. So now I'm going to start adding some lighter hairs. I'm going to use my smaller round size 0 and I'm just going to go straight into the titanium white, which has a whole bunch of colours mixed into it already. So it is not pure titanium white, but it's fairly bright. I'm going to start by applying it to the side of the face that is a little bit touched by the light, so it is the brightest areas, so it'll help me to gauge the light again and bring the brighter tones back into the face. I'm going to start bringing that light into the lip, which is what we're going to need to make that appear more finished. As you probably picked up, I haven't put a lot of emphasis on the lip. This is obviously something that you can do if you choose to. I've chosen to allow it to be a little bit more painterly, mostly because I've chosen the eyes as the focal elements for this painting. And if you would like to push your piece to become more and more and more realistic, you can focus more on the lips and really add more layers and color and really push those opacity layers and glazes further to really blend in the tones and create that really soft look to the lip. For the purpose of this tutorial, I feel like I've really covered the principles quite thoroughly. So if you would like to go ahead and make this more realistic, as I've said before, you are more than welcome to. I'm going to add a little bit more titanium white there because it's become a little bit too grey. I need this to be as bright as it can be without obviously being over the top, but I need the titanium white to stand out a little bit more than what it has been. So I'm going to use a little bit of that grey titanium white that we had from the base of this colour mixture to start adding some light chin hairs. Thankfully, the chin hairs are very clear, so we can just go in there with our brush and just fill them in, because we'll do a base tone and then we will use a glaze and push them back into the shadows underneath the chin, and then we'll come in with some highlight tones on top of that. So a very simple process for the chin as we get closer to the finished look of the painting. Add a little bit of burnt umber to this grey mixture as we just push those tones back a little bit. I'm going to switch over to a liner actually, just to get these hairs a little bit easier. Because my round size 0 brushes are a bit too frayed now. So this is a Cali liner, it's a bit softer. I have a liner in the Seneca range, which will be perfect for this. Basically any liner will be fine. It's just a longer bristle brush, and it's great in terms of creating long, thin, even lines. It holds a lot more paint than the round size 0 because that is a shorter bristle. And so you're able to make the lines a little bit longer, and you don't have to clean your brush off as often. All right, that's given me a really great base to work with, and I'm going to create a lighter blue tone like how we used in the fur on the shoulder. And it's not going to be super, super bright. I'm going to start with a fairly close to the mid-range value kind of tone, and then I'm going to build up the highlights from there. If you're working in oils for this piece, you can do this as I'm doing it, like applying the tones on top of each other. There isn't going to be that much paint there that will make it impossible for you to do so. If you have got quite a thick layer of paint from adding lots and lots of layers, then you will need to wait for it to dry a little bit, to become touch dry at least, before you can add any more paint really in an even way. Otherwise you'll lose most of the tones that you've added. They'll just end up blending together. So because we've got a nice dark base, we can come in straight away with a glaze of our black and just blend those in. The ones obviously closer to the curve of the lip will get more shadow, Focus the glaze on the base of the hairs rather than the whole hair itself, and just blend it in really nice and gentle. That is going to push those hairs back and create the base that we need in order to create a lot of depth in the chin here with very few layers. So like that's all I need in terms of the glaze. And I'm now going to come in with some bright highlight off to the side just so that I can clear my brush, and very carefully apply it to just a few hairs. Rather than using the blue once again, I'm just using a clear white highlight just to focus on just a few little hairs here and there to break up the amount of blue happening here. Don't forget to vary the hairs in length. So have some shorter hairs in there, have some longer hairs. Not all the hairs are going to be the same length. So the variety is going to help make this look more realistic.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope it was helpful. The full-length tutorial is a 4.5-hour long tutorial. I focus on techniques for creating textures, fur, expression, and skin using acrylic paint. I cover everything from outlines, blocking in, building midtones, adding contrast, and refining details. Additionally, I share my layering process to create depth and realism, as well as how I create intricate details in the eyes and facial features to convey emotion and the chimpanzee's cheeky side. For the full tutorial, please follow the link in the description. Remember to subscribe to see more tips and art from me, and I will see you next time.